Picture a hot July morning. You're standing at attention at 5:30 a.m. on the campus of West Point. Your head is shaved, your uniform is spotless, and you are staring down a relentless, brutal 7-week training crucible known simply as Beast. You were a varsity athlete, you were a team captain, your SAT scores were through the roof, and yet statistically, there is a 1 in 5 chance you will drop out before graduation, and a huge portion of those dropouts happen right now, in these first few weeks. So, who survives the Beast? For decades, the military's best psychologists tried to guess based on intellect and physical fitness. They calculated a metric called the whole candidate score. But the data revealed a shocking truth. Talent didn't reliably predict who would make it through. Cadets with the highest aptitude scores were just as likely to quit as anyone else. Because when you are pushed past the absolute limit of your current abilities on an hourly basis, talent loses its edge. What takes over when talent fails? It's a distinct psychological trait called grit. Welcome to Deep Cuts and Deep Thinking.
Thank you. It's really great to be here to dive into this.
Yeah, so our mission for today's deep dive is to really unpack Angela Duckworth's book, Grit. We want to explore, why talent is actually a huge distraction. We'll look at how effort mathematically counts twice and how you can actively grow your own grit to reach your highest level goals.
Definitely. And it's such a profound shift in perspective, really, because, well, in today's world, we spend just this enormous amount of cultural energy idolizing potential.
Right, like we're obsessed with finding naturals.
Exactly. But potential is just unmet promise if it isn't actualized. What Angela Duckworth's book reveals is that the separation between those who achieve greatness and those who simply have the potential for it, it's rooted in passion and perseverance over the long term.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if talent didn't help those cadets survive the Beast, why are we all so universally obsessed with finding these naturals? I mean, you see it in sports, in business, art.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, we treat talent like it's some sort of divine magic.
We really do. And it's actually a deeply ingrained, documented cognitive bias. We suffer from this hidden prejudice called the Naturalness Bias.
The Naturalness Bias.
Yeah. A researcher named Chio-Jun Sei conducted some fascinating studies that revealed just how deep this goes. She started by looking at musicians.
Okay.
When you survey professional musicians, they will enthusiastically tell you that they value hard work, practice, and effort far above innate talent.
Sure, everyone says they respect the grind.
Right, but say put that self-reported belief to the test. She presented her subjects with 2 identical profiles of pianists. One was described as a natural, with early innate gifts. The other was described as a striver who achieved their level through high motivation and relentless perseverance.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, so then she had them listen to an audio clip of the playing to judge who was better.
Wait, let me guess. Even though they claim to love hard work, they rated the natural higher.
That is exactly what happened. But here's the kicker. Unbeknownst to the listeners, it was the exact same pianist playing different parts of the very same piece in both audio clips.
Oh, wow. So there's literally no difference in the performance.
None at all. Yet the listeners consistently judged the natural to be more likely to succeed, more talented, and even more hireable.
That is wild. Are we just lying to ourselves then? Because, we see this in the corporate world too. Everyone claims to love the underdog who works hard.
Well, we aren't necessarily lying maliciously, but we are absolutely deceiving ourselves. And Sei proved this extends far beyond music. She ran a similar study involving entrepreneurship, which is like a field that constantly praises the grind.
Oh, definitely. The whole hustle culture thing.
Right. She had business people listen to a startup pitch. Again, half were told the founder was a natural, half were told the founder was a striver, and the naturals were rated higher. Their business proposals were judged superior, and people were far more willing to invest their money in them.
So they actually put money on the natural over the hard worker.
Yes. In fact, to overcome this bias, investors required the striver to have 4 more years of leadership experience and $40,000 more in startup capital just to be considered on par with the natural.
Man, we really tax the hard worker. But why do we do this? Like, what is the psychological mechanism that leads to us favoring the genetic lottery winners?
The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche actually gave us a brilliant explanation for this over a century ago. He observed that mythologizing natural talent essentially lets us all off the hook.
Lets us off the hook? How so?
Well, if we look at a dazzling performance or a wildly successful business and tell ourselves, well, that person is just a magical genius, we don't have to compare ourselves to them. We don't have to feel bad about our own lack of achievement.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, by labeling someone as divine or inherently gifted, we excuse ourselves from having to compete.
That is an uncomfortable truth. It's like looking at a pristine, finished marble sculpture in a museum. We love admiring the smooth perfection of the final piece, but we deliberately ignore the thousands of tedious, exhausting, blister-inducing chisel strikes it took to make it. It ruins the illusion that we are somehow exempt.
Right, and to stretch that analogy a bit further, if we acknowledge the chisel, we have to admit we could pick one up. It's much safer for our egos to believe the sculptor was born with a magic wand instead of a heavy hammer. If we acknowledge the mundanity of excellence, that it is just a confluence of dozens of small, executable skills practiced endlessly, we have to confront our own complacency.
Wow. So if the magical natural is mostly a myth that lets us sit back on the couch, what actually builds the sculpture? Wait, before you answer, is human achievement really reducible to a neat little formula? Because that feels a bit overly simplistic. What about luck?
That's a very fair point.
Like, what about the fact that some people have immense resources and others start with absolutely zero?
You're spot on to call that out. Duckworth absolutely acknowledges that luck, serendipity, and structural advantages are massive factors in human success. But her focus in this research is entirely on the locus of control, the variables you can actually change.
Okay, that makes sense.
And within that specific sphere, she observed a mechanical reality about how skills are built. It basically boils down to two equations. First, talent times effort equals skill.
Talent times effort is skill.
Okay, and the second?
And then skill times effort equals achievement.
Let me look at that. So effort is in there twice.
Yes, and that is the critical insight. Effort mathematically counts twice. First, your talent, which Duckworth defines simply as how quickly your skills improve when you try, combines with your effort to build a skill.
Right.
But a skill sitting on a shelf does nothing. You have to take that acquired skill and apply it to the real world. That takes more effort. Skill times effort yields actual achievement.
Wait, so is talent completely useless then?
Not useless, no, because I think of talent like the size of a car's engine, but effort is the gas in the tank. A massive engine goes absolutely nowhere if you never hit the pedal. Meanwhile, a smaller engine that is constantly running is going to cross the entire country.
I really like that analogy. Talent does matter. It dictates how fast your skills improve. But without effort, talent is just unmet potential. And applying effort isn't just mindlessly mashing the gas pedal. It's you opening up the hood, tuning the engine, and driving deliberately over the course of thousands of miles.
Do we have a good example of someone who did that?
Yeah, consider the novelist John Irving. He is a master storyteller, National Book Award winner. But he was not a natural writer.
Really?
Oh, he had severe dyslexia. He got a C- in high school English. He scored a 475 out of 800 on the SAT verbal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, teachers actually thought he was lazy. But he learned that to do anything well, he had to pay twice as much attention as anyone else.
Yeah.
Through dogged, relentless rewriting, which is the effort, he built his writing skill.
And then the second equation kicks in.
Exactly. By applying that skill over years of writing draft after draft, which is more effort, he achieved massive literary success.
Okay, so John Irving proves that effort over time works. But writing a novel takes years. Life is full of long, arduous grinds. How do you actually measure someone's capacity to just not quit when it hurts? Like, is there a physical equivalent to that mental stamina?
There is, and it goes back to a fascinating study known as the 1940 Harvard Treadmill test. Researchers put young men on a treadmill set to a brutally steep angle and a blistering speed.
Like a literal treadmill?
Yes, a physical treadmill. The average man lasted only 4 minutes. The test wasn't just measuring aerobic capacity. The physical parameters were designed to be so punishing that it became a test of stamina and strength of will.
Just to see when they would break.
Right. It measured the tendency to quit when the punishment becomes severe. Decades later, a psychiatrist tracked down these very same men. It turned out that their runtime on that treadmill at age 20 accurately predicted their lifelong psychological adjustment and overall success in adulthood.
Because life is essentially a giant treadmill that keeps getting steeper. If you step off the second it gets uncomfortable, you don't grow.
Precisely.
But knowing that effort counts twice is one thing. How does someone actually maintain that level of effort for years without completely burning out?
That brings us to the internal mechanics of grit. It is not just blind stubbornness. Gritty people rely on 4 specific psychological assets: interest, practice, purpose, and hope.
Let's dig into practice. Because practice doesn't just mean casually playing around, right? I could play the guitar for 10 years and still be terrible if I only play the songs I already know.
Exactly the point.
Blah.
Duckworth studied the kids competing in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. The gritty kids who consistently outspell their peers didn't necessarily have a higher verbal IQ. They advanced because of hours and hours of solitary, deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice. What does that actually look like?
Deliberate practice is highly specific. It's not just reading words. It is a highly cognitive, often frustrating process of failing repeatedly at the exact boundary of your current ability. It means identifying your absolute weakest areas and relentlessly targeting them.
And let me guess, that is not a fun process.
It is often miserable. The spelling bee champions actually rated deliberate practice as far more effortful and far less enjoyable than reading for pleasure or playing casual word games.
I can imagine.
It is inherently uncomfortable to constantly stare at what you are bad at. Yet, gritty people somehow learn to embrace this discomfort.
But to keep doing that day after day, you need intense focus. It is so easy to get distracted by easier, shinier things.
You absolutely need a unified goal hierarchy to maintain that focus. To illustrate this, there is a famous prioritization exercise attributed to Warren Buffett. He allegedly told his pilot to write down a list of his top 25 career goals.
Okay.
Then do some soul searching and circle the top 5. Just 5.
Sounds like standard corporate time management advice so far.
Well, here is the twist that makes it brilliant. Buffett asked the pilot what he was going to do with the other 20 goals. The natural answer is, well, I'll work on my top 5 primarily, and the other 20 when I have spare time.
Right.
Buffett said, absolutely not. Those 20 goals are now your avoid at all costs list. They are the enemy.
Why? Why are the other goals the enemy?
Because of cognitive load and decision fatigue. Every time you direct energy toward goal number 11, you are stealing time, focus, and willpower from goal number 1.
Wow.
Those 20 goals are the distractions that will eat your energy and keep you from ever achieving the 5 that truly matter. Gritty people have a top-level compass, and they aggressively pare away anything that doesn't serve it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because there is a paradox here that I'm struggling with. If deliberate practice is so grueling and you have to aggressively cut out all your other casual interests just to focus on it, why do gritty people do it? How is that a fulfilling life?
It is fulfilling because of what lies on the other side of that practice. While the deliberate practice itself is effortful and taxing, it eventually unlocks a psychological shift into the state of flow during performance.
Oh, flow state.
Yes. Flow is that magical, effortless feeling where time fades away, your conscious mind quiets down, and you are performing at your absolute peak. The daily, painful struggle of practice is the toll you pay to experience the ecstasy of flow.
Wow. Okay, so you have your top 5 goals, you're practicing deliberately, and you're occasionally hitting flow, but eventually a massive setback is going to happen. You will hit a wall. So what stops a gritty person from just throwing in the towel when they face a catastrophic failure?
That relies on the fourth asset of grit, hope. But we aren't talking about wishing on a star. It's a highly specific, resilient kind of hope.
What kind of hope?
It traces back to a landmark psychology experiment conducted by Martin Seligman and involving dogs. It's a bit tough to hear, but it fundamentally changed our understanding of motivation. Dogs were placed in cages where they received unpredictable, uncontrollable electric shocks.
Oh, man.
Later, they were moved to a situation where they could easily escape the shocks just by stepping over a low barrier. But having internalized the false reality that they had no control over their environment previously, most of them just lay down and accepted the shocks. This neurological state is called learned helplessness.
That is heartbreaking. They literally lost the will to try because they believed their actions no longer produced outcomes. But did all of them give up?
No, and that is the crucial finding. About 1/3 of the dogs remained resilient. They kept trying maneuvers until they found the escape. Seligman later applied this concept to humans and found that human resilience comes down to the stories we tell ourselves about our failures.
How so?
Optimists search for temporary and specific causes for failure, like, I mismanaged my time on this one specific project. Pessimists assume permanent and pervasive causes, like, I am just a failure who screws up everything.
And that connects perfectly to what Carol Dweck calls the growth mindset, right?
Yeah, it's the foundational concept. People with a fixed mindset believe their intelligence and abilities are static. So when they fail, it is a devastating blow to their identity. They think, I guess I'm not smart enough.
Yeah, which is completely debilitating.
Exactly. People with a growth mindset believe abilities can be developed. So when they fail, they think, I just haven't learned how to do this yet. This distinction is what prevents you from becoming what Duckworth calls a fragile perfect.
Fragile perfects. Elaborate on that, because I feel like we all know someone who fits that description.
These are high achievers who cruise through early life completely friction-free. They are naturally smart, they get into elite schools without having to study too hard, and praise comes easily.
The classic gifted kid.
Right. But because they never truly struggled, they never learned how to process failure. When they finally encounter a real obstacle, say getting their first bad performance review in the workplace, they completely shatter. They don't have the psychological tools to bounce back because they've never practiced falling and getting back up.
So what does this all mean for you and me? Think of your mind like an immune system. If a child is kept in a completely sterile bubble, their immune system never encounters any germs. It never learns how to fight off an infection. The first time they step outside and catch a common cold, it wipes them out completely.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it.
You actually need exposure to failure and frustration to build the psychological antibodies of grit. If you protect yourself from ever looking foolish or failing, you are guaranteeing you will be a fragile perfect.
Yes. Just like a vaccine introduces a small amount of stress to fortify the body, small failures fortify the mind. You cannot build resilience in a vacuum. But that observation steers us toward a crucial pivot in Duckworth's research.
What's that?
Up to this point, we've discussed internal traits, how you think, how you practice, how you explain failure to yourself. But what if your internal engine is just sputtering? The good news is that grit isn't just generated from the inside out. It can be manufactured from the outside in. Yes. Our environments, our cultures, and our groups can literally forge grit for us.
Okay, but how does that actually work? How does my environment make me gritty?
Let's look at a massive study by Warren Willingham, the former director of the Personal Qualities Project at the Educational Testing Service. They followed thousands of high school students for years to see what predicted real-world success in young adulthood.
Like looking at their grades and stuff?
They looked at grades, SAT scores, leadership potential, everything. The single best predictor of success was not test scores. It was follow-through in high school extracurricular activities.
Just showing up to an after-school club made them successful.
Not just showing up specifically, sticking with it. The students who participated in activities for several years and actively advanced in them, like going from a bench warmer to a team captain or a staff writer to the editor of the paper, were statistically far more likely to graduate college with honors and achieve notable success in their careers. It didn't matter what the activity was: tennis, debate, student government. What mattered was the continuous commitment. Doing hard things in a structured environment teaches you how to do other hard things.
Because you're practicing the cycle of struggling, improving, and succeeding within a framework that holds you accountable.
Exactly. And this extends to the broader culture you surround yourself with. Pete Carroll, the legendary football coach, built the Seattle Seahawks culture entirely around the concept of grit. Their central philosophy is always competing.
Right.
But he doesn't just mean competing to beat the other team. He means relentlessly competing with yourself to reach your absolute best.
Okay, but I have to push back here. What if you aren't a Seattle Seahawk? What if you are an accountant working from a home office? How do you join a gritty culture when you're completely isolated in today's world?
It's a vital question. You don't need a football stadium to find culture. Culture exists in micro-communities. There is a Finnish concept called Sisu, Yeah, it translates roughly to an obstinate spirit of getting the better of bad fortune by proving you can stand worse. It's a cultural identity of resilience. If you view yourself as a Finn with Sisu, your identity drives your behavior.
Oh, I see.
For the isolated accountant, this means seeking out online communities, joining industry mastermind calls, or finding a single accountability partner who shares your high standards. If you embed yourself in a microculture where grit is the norm, the basic human drive to conform works to your advantage.
I love that. It means that trying to be gritty completely alone, relying only on your own discipline, is the hard way. Joining a gritty culture is the easy way.
It really is.
It's like stepping onto a moving walkway at an airport. If you were standing still on the regular floor, you have to use all your own energy to walk. But if you step onto the moving walkway, if you surround yourself with a community of people waking up at 4 a.m. to practice, the culture physically pulls you forward, even on the days when your own willpower falters.
That is a brilliant visualization. You're essentially outsourcing your willpower to the environment. The environment dictates the default behavior. If the default is excellence and perseverance, you will adapt to meet it.
So let's bring all of this together. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. First, talent is a distraction that lets us off the hook. Do not fall for the naturalness bias. Second, effort mathematically counts twice. It builds your skill, and then it applies your skill to create actual achievement.
Right.
Third, you need a singular top-level compass.
Huh?
Don't be afraid to put your lesser goals on an avoid-at-all-costs list to protect your cognitive bandwidth. Fourth, you must embrace the pain of deliberate practice to reach the joy of flow.
Essential.
Fifth, cultivate a growth mindset and expose yourself to failure so you don't end up a fragile perfect. And finally, join a culture that demands follow-through so the moving walkway of that environment can pull you forward.
It is a comprehensive blueprint for actualizing your potential. But as we wrap up, I do want to leave you with a lingering question that Duckworth herself wrestles with at the end of her research.
What's that?
Is there a downside to grit? Can you have too much of it?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. If you sacrifice absolutely everything, all your other interests, your free time, your diverse hobbies, for a singular, obsessive, top-level goal, what happens to the rest of your life? What happens to your family, your well-being, or your capacity for simple, unstructured joy?
That's a heavy thought.
Sometimes, quitting a path is the healthiest, bravest thing you can do. It is something to critically weigh as you choose exactly what you are going to be gritty about.
That is a fascinating tension to leave on. You have to make sure the mountain you are relentlessly climbing is actually the one you want to be at the top of. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into what makes us stick to things when the going gets tough. We'll be back soon to unpack another stack of sources. If you enjoyed this episode, show your support by hitting like and subscribing.